The evolution of the UK is far from over. Just as it has adapted over thousands of years, it will undoubtedly continue to change in ways we cannot yet predict. Welcome to Historical Moments, where we take you on a journey through time. Our channel is dedicated to bringing you fascinating stories, pivotal events, and unforgettable moments that have shaped our world. Whether it's a significant battle, a game-changing discovery, or a moment of triumph, we uncover the history that defines us. Subscribe and join us as we explore the past, one moment at a time. The story of the United Kingdom is nothing short of a historical epic. It's a tale of unity and division, conquest and revolution, a collection of small islands that grew to wield power across the globe before evolving into the complex, modern nation we know today. To understand this transformation, we need to go back to the very beginning, before there even was a United Kingdom, to a time when the British Isles were a fragmented landscape of warring tribes, foreign invaders, and competing kingdoms. Around 3,000 years ago, the lands that now make up England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland were home to Celtic tribes. These ancient peoples, who left behind mysterious monuments like Stonehenge, dominated the region until the Romans arrived in 43 AD. The Roman conquest marked the first attempt at unifying the island of Great Britain, but their control didn't extend to modern-day Scotland, where fierce tribes like the Picts resisted their might. Roman Britain lasted for nearly 4 centuries, leaving behind enduring roads, baths, and cities. But when Roman legions withdrew in the 5th century, the Isles descended into chaos. The power vacuum left by the Romans invited waves of invaders: Angles, Saxons, Jutes, Vikings, each carving out their own territories. This volatile period birthed the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England, and by the late 9th century, King Alfred the Great of Wessex had begun the process of uniting these rival realms under one banner. England, however, would not truly take shape until 1066, when William the Conqueror stormed across the Channel with his Norman army, forever altering the island's trajectory. The Norman conquest brought centralized rule, feudalism, and castles, an entirely new infrastructure of governance. Over the next few centuries, England began to consolidate its power within its borders, but the idea of the United Kingdom was still a long way off. Scotland remained an independent kingdom, Wales was divided among princes, and Ireland existed as a patchwork of Gaelic clans. In 1284, England moved closer to unifying the Isles when Edward I of England annexed Wales through the Statute of Rhuddlan. Welsh resistance continued for decades. But by the 16th century, Wales was fully incorporated into the Kingdom of England under the Laws in Wales Acts introduced during the reign of Henry VIII. Yet even as Wales was absorbed, Scotland stood firm as an independent nation, often allied with France against England in what was famously called the Auld Alliance. The turning point came with the crowns of England and Scotland being united, not by conquest, but through a royal union. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth I of England died without an heir, and the Scottish King James VI, her cousin, ascended to the English throne as James I. For the first time, the kingdoms of England and Scotland were ruled by the same monarch, initiating the Union of the Crowns. Despite this, the two countries remained separate states with their own governments for the next century. It wasn't until 1707 that England and Scotland would truly unite. The Acts of Union created the Kingdom of Great Britain, merging their parliaments into one based in London. This monumental decision was partly driven by financial necessity. Scotland's economy had been devastated by a failed colonial project in Central America, and the promise of economic stability through access to English markets. But the union wasn't universally popular. Many Scots felt their independence had been sacrificed. In fact, those tensions still echo today. Around the same time, Ireland was experiencing its own struggles under English rule. By 1801, Ireland was brought into the fold through another act of union, creating the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. But unlike Scotland, this union was forged under duress rather than mutual agreement. Centuries of English domination in Ireland had bred resentment, and Irish Catholics endured harsh discrimination under policies that favored Protestant settlers. Meanwhile, the 18th and 19th centuries saw the United Kingdom's power extend far beyond its borders. The Industrial Revolution transformed Britain into the world's first modern industrialized economy, while its navy enabled the creation of the British Empire, the largest the world had ever seen. At its height, the empire controlled nearly a quarter of the Earth's land and population, earning the moniker, the empire on which the sun never sets. But as Britain expanded globally, fractures appeared closer to home. Irish nationalists began organizing for independence, fueled by centuries of exploitation and the catastrophic Great Famine of the 1840s. By the early 20th century, the Irish struggle culminated in the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921, which granted independence to most of Ireland, while partitioning off 6 counties in the north to remain part of the UK. This created the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the political entity we know today. The loss of Ireland wasn't the only change in the 20th century. The era of empire entered its twilight following 2 devastating world wars. Britain emerged victorious both times, but at a steep cost. The wars drained resources, and movements for independence surged across the colonies. One by one, nations like India, Kenya, and Jamaica broke away, leaving Britain to adapt to its new reality as a post-imperial power. Domestically, the 20th century brought sweeping social changes. The establishment of the welfare state after World War II, including the National Health Service, aimed to support citizens in an era of reconstruction. Meanwhile, waves of immigration transformed the UK into a multicultural society, particularly as people from former colonies arrived to build new lives. In recent decades, the question of unity has surfaced once more. Support for Scottish independence gained momentum, culminating in a 2014 referendum where Scots narrowly voted to remain in the UK. Northern Ireland, too, faces unique challenges as the scars of sectarian violence and the Troubles still linger. And then there's Brexit. The 2016 referendum to leave the European Union revealed deep divisions within the UK. England and Wales voted to leave, while Scotland and Northern Ireland overwhelmingly voted to remain. Leaving the EU has reignited debates about national identity and raised questions about what it means to be united in the modern UK. Today, the United Kingdom stands as a nation of contrasts, a global hub of culture, commerce, and influence, but also a country grappling with its own history and internal divisions. The evolution of the UK is far from over. Just as it has adapted over thousands of years, it will undoubtedly continue to change in ways we cannot yet predict. But one thing remains certain. The history of the United Kingdom is a testament to the power of resilience, reinvention, and the ever-shifting tides of time. In a world not too dissimilar to our own, the political landscape of the United Kingdom took a radical detour during the early 20th century. It is a story not of crowned monarchs ruling from Buckingham Palace, but of a line of presidents who shaped the fortunes of the British Isles. This alternate history begins not in grandeur, but in upheaval, in a time when a nation's identity hung in the balance. The year was 1910. King Edward VII had died, leaving the throne to his son George V. But just as George's coronation was planned, Britain found itself engulfed in economic strife and the stirrings of social revolution. The monarchy, once a symbol of unity, became a lightning rod for criticism. a spark lit the powder keg in the form of a scandal. Documents leaked to the press implicated the royal family in speculative investments tied to the South African gold mines, a glorious fortune made at the expense of ethical concerns. Riots broke out in London as working-class citizens demanded the abdication of what they called the gilded parasites. Parliament, pressed between rallying crowds and its own divided members, took an unprecedented step. A constitutional convention was called. Chaired by progressive members of the Commons and the Lords alike, the convention debated whether the monarchy could survive the new century. Days stretched into weeks, and after a raucous debate, the decision was announced in what newspapers called the Great Reckoning of 1911. The monarchy was abolished. In its place, a parliamentary republic with an executive president elected by the people of the United Kingdom. Charles Whitmore, a Labour MP who had led calls for reform, stood as the first president of the United Kingdom. His campaign promised social welfare programs, economic stabilization, and a healing of the divides between the elites and the working class. Whitmore's inauguration marked a new era. His stoic yet friendly demeanor resonated with a weary, revolution-tired nation. The office itself was tailored to the British mindset. The president was not to wield unchecked power. Unlike the flashier American presidency, this office drew from parliamentary republic models, blending diplomacy, soft power, and a bit of ceremonial gravitas. Whitmore's presidency, though brief, set the tone for the office. He oversaw the first extensive reforms in labor rights and public housing, laying the groundwork for what would later be called the New British Deal. However, his vision of a United Kingdom truly united would be one unfulfilled in his tenure. Whitmore's tragic death from pneumonia just 3 years into office ended the nascent presidency on a somber note, but the seeds of a new civic mythology were planted. Whitmore's successor, Edith Blackwood, made history not only as the first female president of the UK, but also as one of its most transformative leaders. A fierce advocate of ties across the empire, President Blackwood aimed to redefine Britain's role in the world after the dismantling of its monarchy. Her approach sought to heal colonial tensions and modernize diplomacy. During her 2 terms in office, she managed 2 feats that historians have since dubbed impossible. First, Blackwood spearheaded the Devolution Act of 1923, laying the foundation for Scottish, Welsh, and Irish self-governance under federalism, though the troubles in Ireland foreshadowed greater conflict. Second, she formalized the office of president, moving it away from direct control of the sort Parliament had over Whitmore. She imbued the presidency with what she called pragmatic dignity, establishing the Office of Public Service to channel community works through the executive branch. Still, troubles loomed in other corners of Europe. The rise of fascism in Italy and Germany by the late 1920s made Blackwood's pacifist tendencies a point of criticism. Her presidency concluded with an exhausted but still enduring Britain, signaling a handover to a new generation of leaders. By the Great Depression, the cracks in the presidential system began to show. Juggling his nation's economic downturn and its position as a crumbling imperial power, President Richard Oldham wavered. His administration, marked by austerity measures, became deeply unpopular. Tens of thousands marched in protest, waving banners that read, "The People's Presidency is no longer ours." In contrast to America's charismatic Franklin D. Roosevelt, Oldham was seen as wooden and aloof. World War II, however, became the crucible for the presidency's rebirth. When David Rutledge, a firebrand conservative, entered office in 1939, he emphasized strength, character, and national pride. On the eve of war, Rutledge delivered his most famous address from the historic Tower of London. "The kings and queens of old faced invaders with their shields and swords. Let us meet today's oppressors not with weapons alone, but with the unity of our hearts. That is our kingdom, an unbreaking spirit. During the Blitz, Rutledge's tours of bombed-out neighborhoods and his inspirational speeches rallied the nation. His partnership with Churchill and military leaders made him one of Britain's most adored presidents. But his presidency was not without controversy. Some claimed he overstepped his limited powers in wartime. Regardless, he left office with Britain bloodied but unbowed. The rebuilding of Britain after World War II saw the election of Margaret Linwood, whose presidency came to be defined by Reconstruction. In partnership with Prime Minister Clement Attlee, Linwood helped lay the foundations of the National Health Service. It was during her presidency that the phrase, "a president for the people," was popularized, reflecting how deeply intertwined the office had become with British identity. The post-war presidents all sought to balance the needs of a recovering nation with its role on the world stage. As decolonization accelerated, Britain's imperial identity gave way to an emergent Commonwealth, a unique diplomatic bloc that would define much of 20th century geopolitics. One symbolic statement made by President Ian Northbridge during the 1960s charmed the nation. He invited Martin Luther King Jr. to meet him at Cromwell House after King's Nobel Peace Prize celebration. Northbridge declared the UK's support for global civil rights during the meeting, calling it a small step, but one of many Britain must coordinate with free peoples. As the 90s brought the complications of globalization, climate awareness, and the emergence of digital issues like cyber warfare, each successive president seemed more embattled than the last. By the 2000s, President Ellen Harper found herself navigating Brexit debates, the Iraq War protests, and the fallout from a global financial crisis. During this modern period, some began questioning whether the nation ought to consider ending the presidency and adopting a prime ministerial model akin to Canada's, though those voices were in the minority. Harper, like the best of her predecessors, understood the weight of symbolism. She used public broadcasts to urge calm, while also proposing sweeping, bipartisan green energy initiatives. By the time she concluded her term in 2015, her model of environmental stewardship had made the UK a leader in renewable energy, a rare rallying point in divided times. Today, the presidents of the United Kingdom are layered in history and enigma. Some see them as symbols of Britain's adaptability, while others wonder whether old traditions might better suit modern challenges. But one truth persists: the idea of a presidency, born from the people's will rather than royal blood, continues to spur conversations about identity, leadership, and the meaning of a united kingdom. Would the UK have been better off with a long line of ceremonial monarchs? Or does this alternate history signal a future that is yet unwritten for republics around the world? The answer, as it is always in these stories of what if, lies in the hands of the dreamers. Who, after all, can say what role the next great president of the United Kingdom might yet play? The narrative of the United Kingdom's presidency is still being written, a testament to the enduring spirit of progress and unity. The legacy of past leaders and the imagination of future dreamers will shape the next chapters of this unique story. Thank you for watching Historical Moments. We hope you enjoyed this trip through history. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the past. Until next time, keep exploring the moments that changed history.